Let's go, folks. Time for the Gibby Show.
How you doing, baseball fans? And welcome to another edition of the Gibby Show, presented by Miller Lite, the official beer of Major League Baseball and the Gibby Show. I'm John Arezzi, and joining me, one of the most beloved figures in Toronto Blue Jays history, the two-time manager of the Jays, skipper of the 2015 and 2016 playoff teams. He is a best-selling author. He's also the voice of that book, Gibby, Tales of a Baseball Lifer. Joining us, as always, the star of the Gibby Show, the baseball lifer himself, John Gibbons. And Gibby, you're back out in the wilderness, from what I understand, enjoying the Bears and hopefully some beers of the Miller Lite variety.
Oh, you know that.
How's it going out there?
Good, man. Going to enjoy life, relax a little bit with my wife. My wife's a wonderful photographer. We ran into we've seen a lot of bears, this trip, and it's been kind of cool. We get out here and we isolate, and it's a wonderful place.
Yeah, I saw one of the videos you posted up on your socials, that family of bears, and it was just kind of spectacular to see. And how far exactly were you from them?
Gosh, it was under 100 yards. The rule is you got to be 100 yards, keep a distance, because if they start moving towards you. But it was a big group of people, so all I had to do was outrun at least one of them, and then that'd have been all right.
Well, it looks like you're having a great time out there, and it's good to get away for sure. We do have a promotion to talk about that listeners of the Gibby Show can participate in. We'll talk to you about that later in the show. It's about Gibby's book and ECW Press and a special opportunity, so we'll talk to you about that later. The Jays are out of the postseason, as we all know. Knocked out, swept by Minnesota in the best of three wild card playoff series. There's a lot of questions swirling around Blue Jays Nation, the media, and around baseball. So we'll get into all of that on today's show. And later on, Gabbing with Gibby, John's done it again. Gabbing with Gibby, of course, brought to you by Tim Hortons. We will bring on former Blue Jay, a member of the 1993 World Championship team, the winner of the MVP of that series. He's a Hall of Famer. Paul Molitor will be our special guest in just a little bit. And, of course, inspired by our friends at Miller Lite, we'll have another roast and toast as well. But, Gibby, let's get right into the leadoff. And this one is a difficult one, because we all know that the early departure of the Jays in the playoffs this year was heartbreaking, was frustrating, and it put a spotlight on the entire organization, and really not in a good way. The removal of Jose Berrios in Game 2, as he was arguably pitching his best game of the year in order to bring in Yusei Kikuchi, is still being debated throughout baseball. Not just by Blue Jays fans, but the media and everyone else is talking about it. While almost everybody felt it was kind of a predetermined analytical move, including many Jays who spoke openly about the surprise and defending John Schneider, GM Ross Atkins met with the press this past weekend, and his comments just kind of put fuel on the fire. So Gibby, Atkins put the entire decision on Schneider, saying, quote, "When that decision occurred, I found out about it when you did." Other quotes from that Saturday presser: "I was surprised he was coming out. I don't know if I've ever seen that. He put full responsibility on the manager." Do you think Atkins kind of threw Schneider under the bus with these comments?
Well, Johnny, I'm a little confused myself, and I've been in that managing chair, and the where the uproar is in the baseball fandom, is amongst fans, players, things like that. A lot of front offices are doing things this way, so that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, right? And but what I'm surprised about, because first let me preface it with, when I was working there at the end before I was cut loose, they let me do my own thing. I think they would have, if I leaned on them a little bit more for some of that, but that's not the way I was used to, right? So, but I'm a little confused too. But I just wish, I don't care whether it's Blue Jays, Mets, and you name a team out there, right? When you get your front office and your coaching staff and your team like that, it should be a unified front. Everybody say, hey, you know what? Listen, regardless of what happened, we don't like the outcome. Nobody does. We thought we were a better team, whatever you might want to say there. But, we're all in this together. We're doing our best, to be a team where we have info up top that we think is beneficial to the guys on the field. We give it to them, and they make their decisions and run the game. What's wrong with that? Because when you don't do it that way, then you get all this and that, and everybody gets burned, and everybody's under the gun, and you know what? We're crying out loud, but it's a sport, man. This is entertainment, but I guess that's what makes it so exciting. But the way baseball's run in a lot of places nowadays, that move shouldn't have surprised anybody, because that's kind of the way everything's kind of laid out. Now I don't think somebody's calling the dugout and say, hey, make this pitch a change, or somebody. But I've heard there's analytics guys that in some on some teams near the end of the dugout, or kind of helping formulate some things. How true that is, I don't know. Yeah, it's just unfortunate, because what gets taken from this too. You got to tip your hat to Minnesota. They played some pretty damn good baseball.
They did a very exciting team, and there's so many things that happen during that series that you kind of look at. But getting back to Atkins, and like you're saying, it's putting everybody under the microscope when everyone's not unified. He did say in the press conference that Schneider would be back in 2024 when asked. We've not heard from John Schneider at all since then. Does he need to comment anymore and address that this was solely his decision and back up Ross? Or, what do you do? I mean, it's an uncomfortable situation regardless. Well, what do you do if you're John Schneider?
Yeah, I don't know what you do, to be honest with you. But this was when there's obviously it's kind of pointing out that there's confusion there, and you can't have that on a major league team. But you know what? I don't. It just kind of looks like the United States government, for crying out loud. Nobody's taking responsibility for anything. It's like so everybody's going.
Yeah. Well, maybe there'll be more clarification when the president Shapiro talks to the media this Thursday. I mean, he is the head of baseball operations. So wouldn't it be good if he gets like everybody there on the dais and saying, this is what happened. This was our decision. We stick by it, regardless win or lose. Because right now it just seems like you don't need three different camps to be circulating. The manager's camp where the players were defending him for that decision. They were kind of saying, well, it really wasn't his. And then Atkins says, it was his. It wasn't mine. I gave him the information. He does what he wants with it. So it's just kind of, as a fan, as someone who's covering the team, as we do, and especially in your role, a former manager sitting here and like you're looking at it. I mean, it really is kind of it's a little bit of a circus right now.
Oh yeah. You know what, this is what I don't understand. It's not just talking about baseball or anything like this. I love politics. But it's like in that world, right? If you believe in something, right? If you're going to go out, but it doesn't have to be either one of those. It could be anything in life. If you believe in something and you think this is the best way to do this, for crying out loud, defend it. You know what? Stick your chest out and defend it. Say, we think this is the best way to run this baseball team, run this football team, run the state, whatever it is, and defend it. Because even in the political world, what they do is they're for something, they pass it, and then they start backpedaling when they take some heat for it. It's like, for crying out loud, if you're really that convicted, defend it. That's what I don't understand. But who knows? But that's kind of the world we live in. It's easy to point fingers. And bottom line is, it didn't turn out the way they wanted. They had a good team. There's no question about it. And some crazy things happen in that game, but I guess. But if anything, man, this is the beauty of sports and in social media. It kind of drives the interest of everything, right? The problem is there's individuals that are taking the heat so you got to come clean.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's 2023. It's baseball of 2023, and this is a little off topic, but I was watching the Braves in the playoffs, and Spencer Strider. I mean, he went ballistic in the dugout when he knew he wasn't going out for the eighth inning. He was in their face, like knew that he could continue. So, I mean, it really is the game. It's the analytics. And, sometimes, I mean, for me all the time, I just crave the old days where it's the feel of the game, not what's printed on a piece of paper. I mean, you're a manager. You got to go with the feel of the game and not exactly what's on this paper, that's being spit out of a computer.
Yeah, and, you get to the playoff time, your team, you obviously good enough to get there, right? So you got a good ball club, and you try basically, although it's that time of year, you run your team like the way you've always run it, right? Maybe a little bit less rope, in crunch time,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, this is in the old days too. If the front office felt that the baseball world felt that the manager was doing some stupid things, they'd fire you. Okay, that was kind of everybody knew. Right now nobody knows who's doing what. Like I said, it sounds like the U.S. government. Nobody knows what.
No one knows who to answer to, and where do you get the straight scoop from, and who's taking accountability and responsibility? Everyone's just kind of like, I'm not responsible for this. It's him.
That's kind of the day and age we live in, man. Nobody wants that heat.
I know. It's not just sports. It's everywhere, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. You are listening to The Gibby Show, presented by our friends at Miller Lite. And, John, we are in the middle of the baseball playoffs at the most exciting time of the year. The official beer of Major League Baseball, Miller Lite, is right there supporting all the teams. And I'm sure that both you and I, during this playoff season, we really are diving into some Miller Lights during the games.
Oh, it's good stuff, man. There's a reason why they're the sponsor of Major League Baseball now.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
Before we go into the next segment, I have one other question for you. And you made a little bit of news with a social media post this week. When it was revealed that Minnesota shortstop Carlos Correa actually called the pivotal pickoff play against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. via PitchCon to Sonny Gray, and it was a little too much. You shared your opinions on social media, which was seen by almost 600,000 people. Now, your take on it was like, technology is just taking over. It's too much, especially during a game. Do you think that calling a play with a device like a pickoff play, should that be outlawed really in baseball at this point?
Yeah, I'm like you. You know what? It's like technology. Yeah, technology is great. It's great for the world and all that. But, we're in a sport that maybe we're getting a little bit carried away. I wasn't accusing them of cheating by any means. I wasn't even aware you could do that. All I know is in baseball, used to be we'd work on it, from the day I got into pro ball and, in spring training, you work on that time pickoff play with the middle infielder, guy on second base, that guy on second, the runner's getting a little bit carried away. And used to be an old glove, drop your glove sign to the pitcher, right? As soon as the middle infielder breaks towards the bag. So that way he's not looking back at the runner and timing it that way. When they throw the hand, it's like coming through
so
the catcher.
when that glove drops, the pitcher knows that he's going to have a pickoff.
And he's not even looking at the run. So some teams were doing better at it than others. They had smarter guys out there. But the key to it was you had to get that signal out there between the middle infielder, the pitcher, and the catcher, right? It had nothing to do with the dugout. That's how it all did. And if the teams could pull it off, they were a little more advanced. They worked a little bit smarter, whatever it might be, right? They were a little bit better fundamental teams, those kind of things. But it wasn't easy to do because somehow somebody always seemed to get alerted by it, so you couldn't put the play on. But I was surprised when I was listening to it. They came from the shortstop to the dugout, and then the dugout called it. I'm thinking, okay, to me that just doesn't seem. No. If you can pull it off with those guys down the field, it's almost like the sign stealing, right? If you're not very smart enough to, change up your signs and where that guy on second base can pick them up. What pitches are coming to the hitter that they've been doing forever. You know what? Then that's your own fault. And that's why they came out with the pitch count, right? Well, this is what's coming. Okay. I guess it was to overcome all our stupidity, maybe. But all athletes ain't smart, man. That's historic. But so when that came from the dugout and then they could alert the pitcher like that, I thought that just. But hey, if it's part of it,
much.
That's part.
It's too much.
I was just shocked by it. I think exactly that was my point. I'm not accusing anybody of cheating, but I thought, well, if technology's okay to do it with this, what's everybody grilling Houston so much?
Right.
They were just doing a different.
It was like a comparison. For instance, I mean, when you could determine a pickoff play by pressing a button and who knows what else, Yeah. So I understood what you were saying in the tweet. It got a lot of reaction. And I tell you what else got reaction as a little bit of a follow-up was Vladdy so far off his second base. I mean, that was that in that situation, that was a little too much. Now, Vladdy got picked off. Would you have a conversation with him about that era? Just kind of being more focused on what was going on right then and there, and then the pickoff happens.
Well, number one, that's the biggest mistake, right? You can't get picked off there, right? You're down. That's it. You're in scoring position. Where are you going? Yeah, you would like to think, well, maybe I get a little bit more lead to score, but the bottom line, you're down. You can't get picked off, right? That's right. So that's the bottom line. And yeah, you know what? When those things happen, you got to address it. And I don't know whether they did or not. I'm sure they did. And how everybody addresses things differently because it's costly. It's tougher to go after the big dog sometimes, right? It's easy to go after the little guy, right? Anybody can do that. But those are your team leaders. Those are your main guys. And everybody else on the team say, well, wait a minute. He's got to do the same thing we got to do. Mistakes happen. There's no doubt about it. But what you get into the playoffs, things get magnified, right? And obviously in a game like that, when you're not scoring runs, you took them out of an inning. But so, yeah, that's baseball 101 from when you were a little kid.
Yeah. And, in your tenure, you were really never afraid, or you were kind of reactionary. I mean, if you needed to address it right then and there, if someone really made a blunder, you would get in their face and just say, hey, what'd you do? I mean, you didn't wait. And sometimes you waited to speak, I guess, behind the scenes, but
well, I don't know. I don't like that necessarily the description got in their face. That wasn't always the case. But I know what you mean. But,
I wasn't trying to be disparaging.
I know. But so you got to deal with some things, and sometimes because bottom line, who does it sooner or later if your team's doing stupid things and not producing? Who does the heat come down on? The manager, right? Because your job is to run the team and make sure you're fundamentally sound. Or if you guys are screwing up, you bring it to their attention. But what they do, though, these guys knew I was fair, and it was never a knee-jerk reaction. If there was things that were happening and they kept happening, sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. That's just the way it is. Hey, come on, let's wake up. That's how I was raised in athletics. I was raised, and I think the world's a better place when you're up front, you're honest, and you deal with things. But that's
that's like you say, baseball 101, right?
Life 101 for crying out loud.
Life 101, of course. Yeah. Well, John, that'll wrap up the leadoff. Now it's time for Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons. Hey, Canada, Tim's NHL trading cards are back with an all-new set, so get ready to unpack the thrill and score your favorite hockey stars. Grab them before they're gone. Available right now, only at Tim's. Today on Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons, our guest was a member of the 1993 World Champion Toronto Blue Jays, hitting .500 and winning the World Series MVP that year. I mean, there's so many accolades. Where do you start? He finished his 15-year playing career with 3,319 hits. It's a lifetime .306 hitter with an OPS of .817 for everyone with today's analytics. Playing for the Milwaukee Brewers, Blue Jays, and Minnesota Twins, taking over as manager for the Twins from 2015 to 2018 and winning American League Manager of the Year in 2017. He is a first ballot inductee in the Baseball Hall of Fame, becoming a member in 2004. It is our great pleasure to say hello to Paul Molitor. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing very well today. I appreciate the introduction. Just as I wrote it, you did a good job with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Things are good up here in Minnesota. Baseball has been a huge part of my life. I'm still involved with the game, and of course, with the Twins advancing past the Jays in that wild card series, looking forward to see how far they can stretch it up here. But yeah, things are good for me. Thank you.
Hey, Molly, I tell you what, man, it's good to see you. I've always been a big admirer, right? I tried to, I had a very limited major league career, right? But I followed you. But you think about your career. I know you've heard all this, and I know you've thought about it. But the long career, the Hall of Fame, the MVP in the World Series. Then just doing everything. just the career there. And then you go on, and you become a manager, and I can relate to you with on that stuff. Then you pull off, the manager of the year. My God, is there anything in the game that you wish you had done that you haven't done?
Well, I wish I had more than one ring. That's one thing, but I'm not sure what got into me to make me think I wanted to manage. That was crazy. As you know, there's a lot of stuff that comes with that particular role. Plenty of challenges, certainly trying to motivate a group of men to maximize what they can bring to any organization onto the field. But you grow up and you have a dream about playing and maybe someday finding your way into professional baseball, and then lo and behold, you climb the ladder and you get there. I don't think many guys play to try to become Hall of Famers. You're just trying to do the best that you can and play as long as you can. And for me to play 21 years at the major league level, it was pretty much unfathomable for me. I by the time I retired at 42 years old, I'd spent half my life in the big league. So just a lot to be grateful for, Gibby.
Yeah, hey, you earned that though. I know there's a lot of hard work there, So all right, we got the Twinkies. With our show, we mostly cover the Blue Jays, and then we talk all about baseball. But we just went head to head. You guys played some tremendous baseball, and I got to be honest with you. And I think like most people in baseball, the Twins put it all together the last couple of months. They started the offense came to life, right? It seems like a typical Twins team, good solid defense, fundamentals, they pitch, but you needed the offense. And everybody kind of lumped them and said, well, the American League Central is a weak division this year. They're just leading that division. But they're more than that, aren't they?
Well, I think that they are. And those wild card series, they come and go so quickly. I really believe that as we get more of a sample size of that wild card series over the next decade or so, we're going to see a really high percentage of 2-game sweeps. You win that first game, and the psychological effect, the fact you still got a little bit of leeway as far as winning one out of the next two, as opposed to the converse side where you lose that first game and all of a sudden all the celebrations about getting into the playoffs. Now you're all of a sudden facing an elimination game, and you've only played one game in the postseason. But the Twins are more than just being the winners of a weak division. We've never really had as deep of a pitching staff as the Twins have been able to take out there, led by, Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray at the top and a great bullpen. The Toronto series, we didn't hit a ton. Royce Lewis kind of stole the first game with a couple of homers. Gausman maybe wasn't particularly sharp, but he found his way to keep his team in the game. And then we had the controversy in game 2 surrounding Berrios and making that pitching change early. So, we were fortunate to get through that. For the Jays fans, I empathize with them. The Twins hadn't won a playoff game in 19 years. So everyone was kind of just holding their breath to see if this would be the year we could finally break through, when we did. And now we're giving the Astros a run for their money here in the division series.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base about that series last week, and that was for Jays fans, for baseball fans. Everyone was surprised when that move was made to remove Jose Berrios. What did you think of that change? Did it surprise you? And kind of give us your reaction to what was going on that day.
I won't say that I was overly surprised. I mean, Berrios, I managed him. I know what kind of kid he is. Every once in a while he'll run out there and have a little bit of a clunker, but when he's locked in, he usually can give you some length as well as holding down the opposition. But in today's game, the reason I'm not overly surprised is because there's so much pregame discussion about the various scenarios, how we're going to use our staff. It's an elimination game, so I'm sure that they're thinking about, hey, we don't want to not use some of the bullets we might have to give us a chance to win. It just didn't pan out in that particular inning when the Twins were able to score a couple of runs after the pitching change. And if the Blue Jays had a little bit better offensive series, maybe that point might have been moot. But as it turned out, those were the huge runs and the difference in the second game.
Yeah, you know what? Paul, the game is so different now. It's like, and we overdo it. There's no way. Nowadays we get in the way of the game. I get it. I understand all the the analytics and everything, but the game's still played by human beings. I have a hard time seeing Tom Kelly, Harvey Keene, those guys at CeTO, it kind of the game. You know what? I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's why I'm not doing it anymore. But the game will lay itself out for you. Or how about somebody going out there trying to take Jack Morris out hey Jack, we got a plan here, man. It just wouldn't happen, and it's I don't think it's smart. I think it's obviously. Sure. It's the game. We're trying to control the game instead of letting the boys do it.
Well, as you know from when you finished up your tenure in that manager seat, and even for myself, it's been 5 years now. But the information just changed dramatically, even from my first year to my fourth year, and a lot of it was interesting to me. I had to have a little cheat sheet in my office there to let me know what all those numbers meant.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be asked something by the media and not have any idea what they're talking about. But, you try to use what you can, and some of it was helpful. But, what a player's makeup is, when a player's hot or cold, and some of that stuff about the analytics just isn't going to be the deciding factor in making decisions. And if you get criticized for it, hey, you're in that position of leading that team for a reason. And it's not always going to go perfectly, or everything's not always going to work out right. But I didn't want to have that fallback position of blaming it on analytics. If I made a gut decision, I was going to feel good about that regardless of the outcome.
No, I agree. Real quick, though, Johnny. Hey, you know what happened? One thing I think gets lost in this sometimes, the teammates out there, right? Because I've sure. They're going, what are we doing here? So automatically, that's not going to necessarily kill the game, but it's like, it puts that doubt in their mind, like, hey, what are we doing here? It's like, does this guy have no confidence in this? So those are the little things that occur on the side. And you know what? Then a lot of times, who knows? All right, Johnny, go get him.
Well, I'm sorry. That's a really valid point. That's the manager. He's got a lot of things he's got to fulfill in that role. But one is going to be the collective confidence that the players have in him and what he's trying to do in a given game, whether it's pinch hitting or pitching changes or whatever the case might be. And we saw the reaction from some of the Jays players after that second game, and they were surprised. I mean, the eye test was Berrios was dealing, and just to go to that lefty because he had a couple lefty hitters coming up, he was going to open himself up to a little second guessing. And if the Jays went out and scored 6 or 7 runs, it might have got washed away, but as it turned out, that was the difference in the ball game.
Hey, if I'm an owner too, and I pay a guy over $100 million, I'm going, I pay this guy $100 million, and he can only go 3 innings. Where's the hang up here?
Yeah, great.
Anyway, hi, Johnny.
Yeah, I had a question for both of you as that discussion you were just having. You and Gibby both managed your last game so far in 2018. The question is, the way the game has changed, as you were saying, Paul, in just 5 years, analytics, rule changes, front office getting involved a lot, and the way the younger players, especially now, are being taught the game in the minor leagues. Could either of you see yourselves in a position where you'd want to manage a team in the future under the right circumstance? Well,
I'll go ahead and take the time for myself. I don't know what Gibby's thinking, but I don't see it. I'm older. The day-to-day grind between playing and coaching and managing, just don't really have that feeling that that's something that would be a good fit for me anymore. And it's not so much because of the changes, this and that. It's just kind of more lifestyle and different things. But I still enjoy being connected to the game, but I can't see that in my future.
Yeah, it is a grind. People don't realize that either, and especially, for that managing end of it, like you said, you're worried about 25 guys, right? It's like, it's not just, you got to get yourself ready, and, obviously it's a team game, but it's like, me personally, hey, I would love to give it one more shot, but I think it that crack, I don't know, because I think I got labeled as anti-analytics, which isn't true. I just didn't ever go to the extreme, But I work for, the front office. It's in Toronto now. They're working, was for Snyder there, and they let me do my thing. They inherited me, so I was, as soon as we went south, I was out of there anyway. But they let me do my own thing, and so I can't complain about that. But that obviously that's a little bit different now.
Yeah, well, hey, I just said I got to say that you had to have loved the fact that you were able to manage the team, and the guys up here that we brought in some new people while I was managing. Derek Falvey came in from Cleveland and Thad Levine from Texas, and they were around a lot more than my former general manager Terry Ryan, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. But they didn't give me a lineup every day. We might have had some discussions about potential outcomes later in games, who we want to match up and this and that. But I would not like having the game too much pre-planned before it happened. There's just too many variables, and I want to be making those decisions if I'm fortunate enough to be in the manager's position, rather than having other people tell me how I should manage a game.
Tim's NHL trading cards are back. Unpack family fun. Score your favorite icons with an all-new set. Get yours before they're gone. Only at Tim's.
Hey, Molly, you said lineups, right? If a guy managing your team can't make out his own lineup, let me ask you. Okay, you're a Hall of Fame player, right? And I battled this a time or two when I was managing. There's something that goes through players' mind, right? They like that set lineup, right? Yeah, you may have to adjust it if
Sure.
somebody's struggling, but knowing that they're going to the ballpark that day, they don't even have to look at the board. They know they're in there, where they're hitting, and all that. And it's those mind games, because I'll look at not all teams, your best teams, they don't seem to adjust it much these days, even in this analytics world.
Sure.
But some teams, it's like every day, a guy might be hitting second one day, next day he's hitting seventh, the next day he's hitting fourth. It's like, let me have your thoughts on that. A great player, the mind part of that, would that have affected? I know you're locked in your position, obviously,
Sure.
but tell these people how players think.
No, I don't like the fact that they allow analytics to determine the lineup. The major changes. I mean, you can have a little bit of tweaking here and there, but these teams like Atlanta and the Dodgers, and they're running out 4 or 5 the same names in the same spots every day, and they're playing every day. I know we talk about load management and players being able to play multiple positions and how it increases the depth of your team. And you might have a club where it's more advantageous to try to mix it up a little bit more frequently. But, the best teams I played on, it was, we knew who 1, 2, 3 was going to be every day. Maybe there was some tweaking down the bottom of the lineup, different guys playing, but just lock those guys in. It doesn't matter, righty, lefty, hot, cold, just go with it. I like the continuity, and I like the fact that the players have that peace of mind that they're not going to be being second guessed about what role they should be hitting on any particular day.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. Well, you said 1, 2, 3. All right, talk about that batting title chase there in Toronto when you guys were all battling it out for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a big, I'm not braggadocious, put it this way, but a little trivia that I kind of like. In '93 when we won, Olerud, myself, and Robbie Alomar finished 1, 2, 3 in the batting race. And I think that was the first time that had happened in a long, long time. And when I was in Milwaukee, our first 3 hitters, Cecil Cooper, Robin Young, and myself finished 1, 2, 3 in hits. So, and it goes back to our last question about just having guys locked into certain roles and trusting that that's going to play out in a positive light over the course of a long season. But John Olerud in '93 was hitting 400 in July. I mean, it was an incredible season that he had. I make the joke that when I went to the Jays in '93, I asked Olerud in spring training if he ever thought about winning a batting title. And he said, "Are you crazy?" He goes, "I'm slow. I can't run, this and that." I said, "Yeah, but you got a great eye. You got great bat to ball skills." And so lo and behold, John goes on and at 370, whatever. But I always tell people that if I knew I was going to finish second, I would have waited another year to ask him about winning a batting title. Wasn't good.
Hey, Molly, for guys, one of the all-time greatest hitters yourself, is there a guy out there that you think's the greatest you've ever played with, or the greatest hitter you ever saw in your mind? Is there one guy that there's so many great ones? Well, there really is not so many great ones.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
from your playing and coaching and managing, I mean, you see some amazingly talented people. When I played, I really look forward to, having a chance to compete against some of the guys, and especially when you're a younger player, because now you're playing against guys that help fuel your fire to become a player in the first place. First time you go up against, back in the day, Reggie and Tom Seaver and all those kind of people, and all you're facing them. But then you play longer and you start to see your contemporaries. Kirby Puckett was somebody, Don Mattingly, the consistency of an Alan Trammell, Tony Gwynn's ability to hit, all those guys kind of stood out for you. And then as far as guys I played with, Robin Yount, best teammate I ever had, Hall of Famer. Go to Toronto, Robbie Alomar could beat you in so many ways. I mean, his defense and his base running, he had power, he could hit for average, and just a lot of really good players. I think today's players, when I think about guys that maybe play somewhat similarly to what you tried to do, you look at a guy like Trey Turner. He hasn't had a great year. He turned it on a little bit the second half, but great on the bases, got some pop, clutch hitter. Resume speaks for itself. But as far as the best guy ever play again, I don't know. There's a lot of great ones out there.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, tell us a little bit about your swing. I can remember I'm trying to figure out how to hit right. People always say, well, your swing's too long or this and that. You had to have the shortest swing in the history of the game. Am I right? Am I wrong?
If I was playing today, they'd probably try to change it.
Yes.
It wouldn't. They said it wouldn't play in today's games. I don't know. To be honest with you, Gibby, when I got to the big leagues, I didn't have great strike zone awareness or discipline. The quality of off-speed pitches, split fingers, and sliders were kind of overwhelming me as a young player. And I was typical. I took my stride and tried to pull the ball probably more than I should have, as not being a particularly strong hit. But I just got tired of chasing pitches with two strikes. So I figured out a way to spread out a little bit and just try to see the ball a little longer, protect against pitches that had the highest likelihood of fooling me, and just so I could try to keep those pitches in the zone a little bit longer. I eliminated my stride. And eventually I became so comfortable with that I just took it into my overall approach, even from pitch one. And if you're going to try to hit a lot of home runs and worry about those kind of things, it's probably not the best approach. But you do see some guys today that really minimize how much movement they have. They can load their swing. They can create a little torque. They can, they can do a little bit of coiling and still find a way to get power. But they minimize their stride and they find a way to still, make contact, hit good pitches, and still drive the ball. So, yeah, it was just something that evolves over time. Failure dictates adjustments that you have to make to try to continue to be competitive.
Hey, you still hit a fair amount of home runs for your role in the big league. It's not your typical power stroke. You hit a lot of home runs.
Well, yeah, I wasn't that. I think I only hit 20 once, and that was the year in Toronto. You get those 15 homers a year, but you try to get your doubles. You try to be able to run the bases. I could steal a base, those kind of things. So, but back 40 years ago, not to date ourselves too badly. I mean, the leadoff guy was a table setter. He was kind of like Luis Florida. You get your hits, you can run the bases, you can steal yourself in the scoring position. As you know, playing with the lead in the big leagues, you're going to win about 68% of the game if you score first. So that was kind of my mindset as a leadoff guy back in those days.
Well, it worked. Well, Johnny, what do you got for Paul before we let him go? He's got a ball game to see today, man. The Twinkies are back in action.
Yes, they are. And that fan base there in Minnesota, that just phenomenal, just watching them last week. But I had a question for you that takes you back. I mean, tell us what it was like leaving the Brewers after the 92 season and joining the Jays in 93, which was the year they won it all. So how was that experience for you?
Well, try not to get too long-winded on that one, but, during my generation, there wasn't too many players that played a long time and stayed with the same team. There was some, Gwynn and Yount and Brett and Trammell and certain guys that had 15 to 20-year careers. And I kind of wanted to be one of those guys. But, in the Early 90s is when we really were seeing the split in the markets, the large market, the small markets, all that, how that got involved with labor negotiations. And the Brewers just weren't in a position to pay a free market price, if you will. Offered me a 1-year contract at a pay cut, and the Blue Jays, man, they just won a World Series, and they come after you with personalities like Paul Beeston and Pat Gillick. And I said, I'd be crazy not to want to go to that environment. And didn't know a ton about, what it was like to be a Jay, other than the fact that I sure enjoyed watching them win. The previous year, Dave Winfield, a guy I grew up 5 blocks away from, was an instrumental part of that 92. So, yeah, they gave me a great opportunity. It was hard to leave a place that you had played for 15 years. But in hindsight, man, what a good move for me, and what an opportunity the Blue Jays presented myself, because after 21 years of playing, that's the only ring that I was a part of. So always indebted to the Jays for that. We only drew 4 million people that year, so the environment was incredible. Every day you go out there, there's 50,000 people at the park. So I just really fell in love with the city too. But it was a great 3 years of my life up there in the beautiful city of Toronto.
And the MVP of that World Series.
Yeah, I snuck that in there, Gibby. It's kind of funny. People talk about 93. They don't talk about the MVP. They talk about Joe Carter's home run, and rightfully so. I mean, they only the second World Series ever to end on a home run behind Bill Mazeroski. So, yeah, it was a dream come true for me when Joe's ball went over that fence. I happened to be on first base, and just tried to make sure I touched all the bases, and Bedlam ensued that, and the party was on.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Molly, listen, hey, we can't thank you enough for taking some time out and coming and joining our show here today. You're one of the all-time pros, greatest, not only on the field as a player, but individuals too. And we sure thank you.
Yeah. Hey, well, I appreciate you guys having me on. A lot of respect for you, Gibby, man. I'm glad you're doing this. Hope you're having some fun with it, and we'll catch up somewhere down the road.
All right, pal. Have a great day, huh? Dress warm, man. It gets a little cooler up there in the that part of the world a little bit sooner.
You guys be well. Thanks.
All right.
Well,
see ya.
That wraps up another Gabbing with Gibby. Molitor. Oh my goodness, that was great.
What an old pro, you look at, when you sit down there, you look at his career, right, as a player. I mean, he's not just a Hall of Famer; he's an elite Hall of Famer, right? And then to go on and become a coach, and then become a manager, and he won the Manager of the Year award. I mean, and he, of course, you can't leave out that he won a world championship. He said he would like to have won more. Okay, but we all know how difficult that is. But then he was the MVP of one. There's really nothing he hasn't done, and he's I never really knew him well. I always admired him, and I'm glad I got to speak with him today. He's just a real pro, man. And the Blue Jays, when those teams back then, they always went after the top dogs, man, because they understood, hey, this is how we're going to win. They throw their money in there, and they weren't afraid to bring some Hall of Famers in, and it was kind of interesting. I thought when he lived not too far from Dave Winfield, I thought, man, right. Yep. 2 Hall of Famers right there in that damn cold place of Minnesota.
Yeah, 5 blocks away from each other. What a great Gabbing with Gibby it really was, John. That was tremendous. And now, inspired by our friends over at Miller Lite, it's time for this week's Roast and Toast. The postseason in the major leagues are a time when fans go wild. We all know that. The Twins faithful were like the 10th man on the team last week against the Blue Jays. They drew close to 77,000 fans in 2 days. And from the Orioles to the Astros, the home team fans really show their support by filling up the stadiums and being fanatical for their franchise. However, this didn't happen at the House of Horrors in Florida. The Tampa Bay Rays drew just 39,000 over 2 days at Tropicana Field for the 2-game series versus the Texas Rangers. And for this lack of support, this week's roast has to go to the lack of attendance and support by the fans down for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Heck, those are good crowds, I think. But down there, I think, am I missing something? I don't know.
I'm
if
sure you've seen a
oh,
lot lighter crowds down there, but I mean, it's the playoffs. It's your chance to go all the way. I mean, what are you going to do? And people say it's an afternoon game. Well, look what happened in Minnesota. It was an afternoon game there too, and that place was packed. I mean, it's the playoffs.
You mean to tell me everybody's working? Yeah. You know, I can remember my total time in the coaching and managing the big leagues. I don't know how many years total it was, but you could have the crowds that we'd have there. You could add them all together, probably wouldn't equal that. So yeah. Hey, what a great reason to get a new stadium down there. Aren't they building a new stadium right down the road? It's just kind of an older area that there's always been some controversy, question of where should we build it? Should we build it in Tampa, right, Orlando, and also? So who knows? But bottom line, it is disappointing, obviously. And Kevin Cash made some comments because they put a good team out there every year, and but what the heck? Apparently, they're not losing enough money, or they wouldn't still be there. Somebody's funding them.
Yeah, I just think playoff time is special time if fans should show up, but it is what it is. However, we got a pretty cool toast of the week. There's a 21-year-old rookie turning heads during these 2023 playoffs. Before the playoffs, he had only 23 big league games under his belt. He's ranked as baseball's number 8 prospect, and he was thrown right into the fire when the Rangers put him in the starting lineup against those Rays that we just spoke about, and now against the Orioles in this round of the playoffs. He's batting .500, OPS of 1.806, 1 homer, 2 doubles, and made a highlight reel already with a run-saving catch in his first inning ever playing postseason baseball. He ran 59 feet to rob the Jays in his very first inning. He now gets to play at home to continue this fairy tale story of the 2023 baseball postseason. So this week, we're going to toast the Texas Rangers left fielder, Evan Carter.
Yeah, he's special. You know what? Hey, what a way to break in and make your name, with everybody watching the postseason. And yeah, that's so hard to do. And but the Texas Rangers, one of the top organizations, throughout their minor leagues. So they got players left and right, But you can't, you know what? You got to, even their third baseman, Josh Young, he went to same high school I did in San Antonio. I mean, there's something they're doing things right over there, right? But you can't leave out the fact, Bruce Bochy's there, right?
Oh yeah.
And Bochy's kind of the equal. You could just see his calming presence and he's guiding this team. Where 3 weeks ago, myself included, I thought that bullpen, there's no way. I mean, it's too difficult. But they utilize that offense, and he's mixing and matching, hey, it's but you know what? Chris Young's over there running it, and he brought in Dayton Moore, who ran the Kansas City Royals, 2 great baseball minds. So they know what they're doing. Put it that way.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
Before we wrap it up, John, there is a special promotion going on right now with ECW Press through October the 27th. If anyone would like a personalized signed copy of Gibby Tales of a Baseball Lifer, there is a special promotion going on right now. It's a great early holiday gift. All you got to do is go to ecwpress.com/Gibby and order your signed and personalized copy, Gibby, and these are while supplies last. So it's like when your arm gets tired, it's it. The promotion's over.
And I'm actually signing them,
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool deal.
Yeah, pretty cool. And good Christmas gift. I hope, either that or good Christmas prank you want to play on something.
Christmas prank. There you go. Wow. All right. That'll wrap up this edition of the Gibby Show. For John Gibbons, this is John Arezzi. We'll be back next week to talk more baseball with you. Have a great week, everybody.